Hello everyone, and welcome to the Game Zone, where games are just waiting to be played. What can you say when a game subverts your expectations? When you think it's going to go a certain way, but then the game itself tells you that no, this is how you gotta do it. But if you want to do it that way, be my guest. Often it can lead to brilliance, and games that are able to master this are able to create a special kind of magic. Today, we're going to be taking a look at an indie game that did just that, at least in my eyes. Today, we're reviewing Everhood, an indie RPG with a musical center that is much more than meets the eye and is a story that subverts expectations in the most extreme way possible. Now, I bet y'all were expecting me to talk about a different indie RPG that subverts expectations, and while I do love that particular game, I'm going to make it my mission not to mention it or compare Everhood to it. Also, major flashing lights warning ahead. This game has bright and flashing visuals, so anyone with epilepsy or an aversion to flashing lights, please avoid watching this video. You can listen to it auditorily, but do not look at the screen, okay? I don't want to see anyone getting hurt because of the imagery on display. With all that out of the way, let's get on the dance floor and bust a move. So this is usually where I talk about the history of a game's development and give a few notes to go on, but sadly this game is more recent, so there really isn't much to go on at the moment. Heck, even the Everhood website doesn't go super in-depth. So, what do you do when you can't find information on your own? I'll go straight to the source, of course! I reached out to one of the developers, Chris Nordgren, and he was nice enough to provide some answers to some questions that I had about this game. So to make a long story very short, or at least condensed, Chris Nordgren reached out to Jordi Rocca, who at the time had already released games on the Play Store like Little Stone, after being intrigued by one of the projects he had made. The idea was for the two of them to collaborate on a project, and while Jordi was interested, he wanted to finish the project he was working on at the time. Cut to a couple months later, Chris was hit with a bolt of inspiration while listening to music from Final Fantasy, choice, to make a JRPG-styled game. With the positive reception he received from an impulse tweet and Jordi replying that he had the time to collaborate, the two went back and forth on how they would make this game. One evening, Chris showed Jordi a mock video of the game he was thinking they could make. I'll post a link to the devlog post where you can see the video for yourselves, but this would be the base point to where Everhood would rise. Jordi then set off to find the tools needed to make this game happen, while Chris would work on assets, mock-ups, and art styles to see which would fit the game best. Much like any developer, technological issues would certainly take their toll on development, but in Chris's case, being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes definitely made things more difficult, especially when the guy's main job is working for Mojang on Minecraft. I mean, seriously, dude's working for Minecraft and trying to craft his own game at the same time? Dude, that's a lot to take in, especially with health issues. But even then, the two persevered through it all, especially as the game began to get more complex and much bigger than they anticipated. At the end of the day, Chris and Jordi wanted to, quote, make a great game. The rest just sort of made sense to add during development. Everhood was released on PC platforms and Switch on March 4th, 2021 to incredibly positive reviews, so their efforts were met with grand results in my eyes. If you'd like to learn more about the development of Everhood, I'll post a link to the devlog in the description of this video. There was one other question I asked Chris about when it comes to two battles of the game, but due to spoiler reasons, I can't really say them here. But in the context of the game, it all clicks. Thank you very much, Chris, for sharing all this information. Now, with all that said, let's talk about this vibrant head trip of a game. As a game, Everhood takes on a few classic gaming conventions with a few twists. You play as a wooden doll who has to get his arm back while battling a cavalcade of unique, weird, and utterly ridiculous enemies. But how do you fight with one arm? You don't. I can explain. See, when you enter an encounter, you're able to move left and right and jump to avoid flying energy musical notes. What is this, Guitar Hero? In a way, you could make that comparison since the bars look similar, and instead of catching notes, you're avoiding them. Every enemy, and I use that term rather loosely here, has a different pattern that you have to learn and memorize, and depending on the character, as well as how far into the story you are, you'll have to figure out the best times to move to avoid getting hit. Take too many hits, and you have to restart the song over, or, if you're lucky, you can start at the few checkpoints in some of the larger songs. Later on, you do gain the ability to fight back by grabbing two of the same projectile colors and launching it back. But should you do that though? No spoilers here, folks. Being able to fight back creates a whole new dynamic with a song you might have previously played before, as it gives you a new way to approach it, and with songs that you haven't experienced yet, it makes the dodging and shooting much more hectic. Believe me when I say some songs get absolutely insane with how hard they can be. In fact, the game prompts you to play on hard mode since that's what the developer's vision for the game was. But if that's not up your alley, you can lower the difficulty to enjoy the story. And if you're absolutely mad, you can raise the difficulty to an even higher one for additional challenge. If you manage to beat anything higher than hard mode, my hat goes off to you. I could not dream of beating this game on something like, insane mode, where you only get one block of health and you have to dodge all these things. Yeah, no, it's a bit of a time. When you're not in combat, you're talking to the locals and exploring the many different doors you can open. Where each one will take you, though, is a mystery all its own, but each world promises to entice, confuse, and mystify. Now, about getting your arm back. Before you begin the game properly, you are spoken to by a celestial force? Not spoiling the story, folks. Trust me, I would be doing you all a disservice if I did. This celestial force tells you that you have to abandon your humanity to embrace immortality, and you actually get to choose in this case what you can do. Personally, I've never said no, but upon saying yes, you are whisked into the game, and you see our protagonist, Red, all broken apart. Yeah, this hero really fell to pieces early, didn't he? It doesn't help that as our hero was laying it broken in this state, a blue thief comes around and snatches the dude's arm and runs off. Hey, I need that arm, you know me, bastard. What do you expect me to hold a controller? Regardless, Red comes back together, and your goal is simple. Catch the thief and get your arm back. At least for now. As the story progresses, you discover he was enlisted by the sinister Gold Pig, who quickly incinerates your wooden ass. Okay, well that's a thing. You then enter the afterlife, and after one really trippy sequence involving gnomes, hey, aren't those the devs? And are brought back to life. So then it's off to get your arm back from Gold Pig. But is that really where this story ends? Or is there more to why he and the other residents of Everhood don't want you getting your arm back? It seems that there's more to play here in Everhood than what's being presented on the surface. This story, for lack of a better word, is beautifully layered. Just when you think the story is about to wrap itself up, you discover there is so much more to go, and all that exploring you've done is only half of what you have to do. After a point, the choices you make will have consequences of how the story will progress, and while choices might feel heavy, they are worthwhile in the end. I'm being vague in this review to not spoil what happens, but believe me when I say there were many moments I was left conflicted on a very personal, emotional level. So I will give you guys one moment I truly enjoy, which sets up a lot of fun bits later on. Meeting the Green Mage. You end up in a forest, and as you wander around, you find this weird gem on the ground. Exploring a bit more, you find a bunch of green robes just lying on the ground, with some really freaky purple arms, I gotta admit. Give the gem to this robe, and it turns out that this was the thing's eyeball. Okay, so your eyeball was all the way over there, but you were all the way over here, and how? How did you manage to get all the way over there from over there? How did you do? How? Green Mage then proceeds to turn the stone blocking the way into a clay pot? Yeah, this game does some weird things. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this game will confuse you. Like, many times I was left going, what the heck? The way the Green Mage speaks of you, it's as if he's aware of your existence and he treats you as an enemy. This is only amplified when he then tries to attack you as you start to leave. After a quick but rather cool little fight, he then floats off to a prior arrangement, which you will discover later. This one moment introduces many layers to the world itself, a pivotal character in the world, as well as foreshadowing for events to come. Not to mention introducing a freaking awesome character in the Green Mage. The story of Everhood constantly kept me guessing, and believe me when I say, it is well worth the ride. But what's a good story without a fun world to play in? And Everhood's world is a hell of a trip. Graphically speaking, Everhood goes for that pixel art style, and my god, they managed to do a lot with it. Do not let the simplicity of the art style fool you. The pixel style does not hinder this game in any way. Environments can be ominous, upbeat, creepy, jolly, and absolutely insane. That goes double for the character designs. Red's design feels very reminiscent of Geno from Super Mario RPG, and every character you meet onwards from Zig, Rasta Beast, Nosferatu, nice, Gold Pig, and many others feel unique in their own way. Every character has a memorable design on how they look, how they talk, or how they're involved in the greater narrative of Everhood. I briefly mentioned the forest earlier, so let's quickly talk about that area in terms of how simplicity can work wonders. In this forest, you have to chase a rabbit, while also hunting down mushrooms for a game of hide and seek. As you explore the area, the green lines of the forest form shapes and faces. Using that to your advantage, you can suss out the mushrooms, as they aren't just the simple red caps that you're used to. There are shrooms of all shapes and sizes to find, and each one has a different personality. You wouldn't expect that level of detail for such a small side quest, but it stands out as a result, making revisits to the forest more fun since you know you'll not only see its gloomy and haunting visuals, but also its bright and colorful residents. Plus, that's only a part of the forest area. That one section is only a fraction of what you experience there. This goes for all the environments you visit in the game. Each one has multiple things to do and many areas to explore, and they all look grand. As well, each area has a nice beat to go along with it. Since the game is very music heavy, I would be remiss not to mention the absolutely bombastic soundtrack this game has. One track I would love to bring up as an example of the creative magnitude of the soundtrack is You Want Gnomes, the song that plays during the Afterlife segment. It starts off simple, but slowly escalates into a cacophony of varied loops and beats, and combining that beat with the many trippy visuals, as well as an interruption from the devs Chris and Jordy, push home just how insane this soundtrack can be. It's that madness that is emblematic of Everhood, as well as the experience of the game. And on a visual level, this game explodes with colors, and on an auditory level, it just slaps! At the end of the road, how does Everhood stack up? Well, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want a physical copy of this game immediately. I discovered this game while browsing through the eShop on Switch, and immediately fell in love with it from the trailer on there. Playing it on my own, I was constantly asking, what's next, or what the heck are they gonna do now? And I was laughing and crying all the way to the very end where I promptly teared up in joy. Everhood is one of the most subversive and beautiful games my senses have ever experienced. Never before have I seen a rhythm game push the limits of the mind as I have with Everhood, and quite frankly, I don't think this can be replicated, nor would I want it to be. A game this wild, this unique, this finely crafted is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and as someone who enjoys the wild and unique, I can easily recommend this game to those who enjoy a challenge, a subversive story, and an utterly creative world. Everhood easily scores 5 loons out of 5. This game took my interest and injected me with one of the craziest experiences in gaming I have ever had. If you get the chance, please play this game however you can. Just be cautious of all the flashing lights. Full price or collector's editions if available. Oh, and please do get the soundtrack. It is absolutely amazing. Every track is awesome. You know, I'm actually pretty proud of myself. I didn't mention... No. I am not going to pull this bit. I am not going to do this to myself. I refuse to monologue on how I didn't mention Undertale when talking about Everhood. Aw, son of a bitch!